Just walk through what we know, of course, courtesy of what we learnt yesterday, but also the audit office. So one officer stood down, another moved out of the Western Sydney unit pending investigations. Is this the right action so far?
Well, certainly we're pleased to hear that the department is undertaking investigations, and obviously we note with concern, the AFP's investigation, that was referred, the Australian National Audit Office referred to the AFP back on 10th of July. If I take you through what we do know and what we learned from Senate estimates yesterday, it is very evident that a decision somewhere was taken to ensure that $30 million or thereabouts was going to be paid for this land before any valuations were done, before any projects were, a process or strategy was put in place such as it was. And we know that because from Senate estimates yesterday, the department basically said we baked into the Western Sydney Airport procurement process, we baked in this $30 million as part of the budget for it. So somewhere someone has made a decision that is the outcome, and then it looks like a process has then been engineered to achieve that outcome. And it's not just $30 million. A major road was realigned, there was a $10 million underpass, very beneficial lease-back arrangements. We know that the valuer who was nominated by the landholder didn't even go onto the land to value it, wasn't allowed to, was only allowed to drive past. But we also know there was a rezoning decision that was made that would have rezoned this land as agriculture, not industrial and not residential, which would have then meant the valuation would have changed. Yet the department rushed through the sale, basically, in order to avoid hitting that 20 days later, the rezoning occurred. So there is a lot in this, and I just cannot understand how as a Minister of the Crown would have got a brief about this and just not asked a basic question as to, is this value for money and how much are we paying?
Let's go to that. So one accountant within the department did raise concerns about the price tag on this. More senior staff said there was nothing wrong. As a result, the brief that made its way to the minister at the time being Paul Fletcher, didn't have that concern raised in it. And the auditor's report also said that the department failed to advise decision makers about the basis for land valuation. It was described as reasonable. So the brief the minister got was a price tag and assured that it was reasonable by department staff. That's their job. What's the minister done wrong there?
Well, we don't know, and the first is that the brief didn't have the price tag, and I think it's a basic level of, test of competence. If you're going to have a land acquisition like this, it's a question you would ask as a Minister of the Crown. How much are we paying for this, and is it value for money? And if you can't assure yourself as a Minister of that question, then you have to say, well, there is something wrong here with this process. Again, there are briefs which we don't have access to around the decision to realign the Northern Road. Someone made that decision, all of which benefited the landholder. It certainly didn't benefit tax holders. So we know we're getting to the bottom of what happened. We're getting to the bottom that there obviously is something wrong within the Department of Infrastructure and something very seriously wrong. What we don't know is why. Who actually benefited from this decision? Certainly wasn't Australian taxpayers. And again, I think it either points to ministerial incompetence. We've certainly established that, but if there is something more, I think that's, where further investigations are going to be undertaken.
But has that been established, though? I mean, that's what you're putting forward. The Auditor-General went through this and there wasn't a finger pointed at the Minister. This was being pointed at the department. The brief that went to the Minister made it clear that this was, in the words of the people whose job it is to look at this stuff, it was described as reasonable. So that's you saying that, not the Auditor-General.
Sure. I've been, absolutely. I've been a minister. I've been a minister, cabinet minister, and I know that when you have briefs across your desk, you have to inform yourself. What did the minister do to inform himself that this was value for taxpayers' money? He said he did nothing, basically, and that's incompetence in my book, and I think in everyone else's book as well.
But what does that mean? Every single decision you ever made as minister, something came to the department and then you followed up on why something was value for money as an example? You never took the department's word on anything.
Of course, that's what you're supposed to do. You have ministerial staff in your office, and particularly over something. The Western Sydney Airport is a multi-billion-dollar project. We're not talking about a little roundabout. We're not talking about, we are talking about a multi-billion-dollar, project, and we're talking about a land acquisition, of people who are, well known in New South Wales and would have been well known to the minister, why would you not inform yourself as to what is the price, how much are we paying for it, and is it value for taxpayers' money? In my book, that's incompetence. Obviously, others can make their own judgments, but in my book, that is incompetence.
The Audit Office will be doing fewer performance audits as a result of the last budget. It wanted $6.5 million more just to maintain the same level of service, if you like. Will Labor pledge to restore that money?
Well, I'll leave that to the Shadow Minister, the Shadow Attorney General, who's responsible for that area as he develops policy, and we're a year out from an election.
But this is a tiny amount of money compared to what was pledged. Surely you can just say, yeah, we'll put that money back in.
Well, but it is very clear. We'll make our policy announcements when we make them, but it is very clear the Morrison government does not like transparency. The decision, it's stalling on a National Integrity Commission, the fact that it's cut the Auditor General funding because, largely because of adverse audit reports, it would appear, it really does show the Morrison government and the Prime Minister does not like transparency.
But you can't commit just that tiny amount of money, all this criticism, and you're still going to wait to make that decision. You can't just say, well, yeah, we'll give the Audit Office what it needs.
Well, I'll leave that up to the Shadow Attorney General, who has responsibility for the Australian National Audit Office, and to the economic team, who has responsibility for that, to make those announcements when we do so. But I do think, we're a week out from the government's budget where it has cut funding and made the decision. How about we hold them to account by trying to get us to say what we're going to do in a year's time?